Now everyone's talking playoffs. I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's roll off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the November 29th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions, call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair, having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. So happy to be here. Great. It is 2:04 in the p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and the weather is changing. I could hear the wind blowing. Excited to be here today talking Ram football. Feel a little clearer in the sinuses than I did the last time I was here with that show. So everyone's talking playoffs right now for the Rams, and that's the part that's just amazing to me. It really is, because we were talking about this possibility in August, and I know it sounds like we're trumpeting for ourselves. In one sense, yes. In one sense, yeah, I want to say we had it right. As I've said, myself and the only other person I heard anywhere across Rams media was Jake Ellenbogen. Were the only ones saying this Ram team was going to be better than people think, and that they had a shot and they would be in the conversation, that 8-8 would be okay, 9-8 was possible, 10-7 would be exceptional, right? And so now they're in this position and everyone's talking about it. And the part that I bring it up for is not necessarily to say, oh gosh, wow, Joe, you're great, you got it right, because we haven't gotten it right yet. The Rams still are 5-6. But the part that bugs me, that when people are talking playoffs and all this optimism now, is these are the same people that were speaking all the negatives about historically bad defense, that it was over, that it was this. And I just felt like a lot of folks do this stuff and they don't really work at it, right? They read the news, they go to their turf show times, rambling this, and they just take talking points and they don't really investigate. They don't look at these things. And I think it's a sign sometimes that, you got to work harder than this. You can't just show up. It's one of the things I struggled with in one of the other versions of this that I did for a newspaper was sometimes people don't prepare. And if you looked at this Ram team, you knew there was a possibility, there was an avenue to get to 8-9, and if a few breaks happen, 10 wins. And that would be true if they had pulled off, maybe if McVay had gotten off of Zach Thomas at left tackle in Cincy and we had won that game we should have won. If Brent Maher doesn't melt down and we win that game against Pittsburgh, I'll give you Philly. We should have won it. We could have won it, but I'll give you Philly. I'll give you Frisco, but we could have won it. But the Rams would right there be in that 10-win, possibly 11-win category right now if there wasn't so many, faux pas from a young team. And that's what the other thing I wanted to make a point before we get in the playoff picture and talking about updates in terms of roster and everything and the Browns game is, can everyone just remember last week's win, the offensive explosion, the Gale Sayers Day for Kyren Williams, because that's what everyone's making it out to be? It came against the Cardinals, right? It came against the Arizona Cardinals, who played tougher this year than anyone thought they would. Give credit to Jonathan Gannon. But honestly, in the last 2 weeks, I consider the Seahawk win, as ugly as it was, more impressive than the one in Arizona, because in that Seahawk game, they were playing against a superior team, and a young team, a young Ram team, found a way to win a close game. They lost the close game to Frisco. They lost the close game to Cincy. They lost the close game to Pittsburgh. They lost the close game to Philly. And front office lost the game in Green Bay because they didn't have a legitimate backup quarterback for the Rams. They lost that game in August. So this was an important win against Arizona, but I was more impressed with the Seahawks win because a young team found a way to win. And you've been around sports, you all know there's everyone's good when they're blowing teams out in the third quarter, but how are they in crunch time? And we've seen this Rams team not win when the game's been up for grabs. So wanted to get that across. Stuff appeared in my timeline talking about Carson Wentz. He hasn't even thrown a pass for the Rams yet. But as with Baker Mayfield, I'm kind of hoping the Rams could keep Carson Wentz. I'm hoping he doesn't play. I don't want to see him play this year because I want as much Matthew Stafford as I can get. But I'm hoping Carson Wentz will realize that he has no market, that it took something like 10 weeks for him to get an NFL contract this year, and that he'll stick around with a very friendly team deal and rehabilitate his career. Baker Mayfield had, a month and a half with the Rams? And he got an 8-rock contract with the Buccaneers. And he's actually played pretty well with the Buccaneers this year. And so good for him. But I'm kind of hoping Carson Wentz, who seems to have less of a market than Baker Mayfield, I'm kind of hoping Carson Wentz sticks around, because if and when Stafford goes down again, then you do have a guy that's a competent NFL quarterback. When you draft Stetson Bennett, I don't know if you're drafting Stetson Bennett to be anything more than your Gary Kubiak, right? He's not going to be an NFL starter. Kind of like I like the guy from Notre Dame, Sam Hartman. He might only be a backup, but you're not going to really look at him to be your NFL starter. Maybe people are looking at Sam Howell right now in Washington. He looks like a really high-end backup quarterback, right? But he's playing well. But you want a guy that can make plays. I don't want a guy that can't make plays, right? I want the idea there's a threat for the defense to deal with, and I'm hoping Carson Wentz sticks around, especially as the Rams' Super Bowl window is reopening, and this team gains more experience and a full draft class next year in every round, and a lot of cap space. A backup quarterback like Carson Wentz would be really, really important here. So let's keep pumping along here. NFC playoff picture. We've been saying it. We've been posting it. We're going to post it again. 5 automatics in the NFC playoff picture. That's including Dallas, 4 divisions. But Dallas is 8-3, and barring a monumental collapse, they're going to the playoffs. We know that. And so you got Eagles, Lions, 49ers, and right now the Falcons. They're 5-6, but they're ahead in the NFC South. Seattle has passed Minnesota. Minnesota lost to Chicago on Monday, and we're going to talk about Josh Dobbs in a second. And so Seattle is 6-5, and Minnesota is 6-6, and they have the last two spots in the NFC. And then you got Green Bay at 5-6, and the Rams at 5-6, and of course Green Bay owns that precious head-to-head meeting. Rams, on the other hand, own the 2 head-to-head wins against Seattle, so that's why they're so high in the mix. And then you got the Saints 5-6, who the Rams play, and have a chance to dismiss from this conversation. And then you have the TaxSkins, who the Rams play. You have Tampa Bay. You have the Giants, who the Rams play. And all those teams, they're not really playoff contenders, but the Rams could be able to dismiss them and collect a couple W's along the way. The critical part here is Green Bay plays the Chiefs. They play the Chiefs, and then they get the Giants, the Bucs, the Panthers, the Vikes, and the Bears. And so, yeah, that's the part that makes it scary. As everyone's talking playoffs, is it just means the Rams are going to have to come close to running the table. If they can, win this game and win against the Saints, the TaxSkins, and the Giants, that'll be 4 wins. They'll be 9-8, and that puts them in the conversation. And that means it's been a great year. But it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to the playoffs, because that head-to-head with Green Bay is a real killer. Minnesota gets the Raiders, Bengals, Lions, Pack Lions. That can go any way. We don't know which way that's going to go. The one thing I do believe is there's only going to be one team from the NFC South, and that's going to be whoever wins the division. Around the NFL and other places, as I shared the other night, Rob Sorge. Okay, I'll get to you, Rob. I promise. I get to Steeler fan Rob. around the NFL and other places. Sean McDermott, as I said the last episode, is Chuck Knox. He's Chuck Knox 3.0. There was Chuck Knox, there was Marty Schottenheimer, and there's Sean McDermott. And as I was watching the game on Monday night, I was looking at Josh Dobbs, and who doesn't want to root for Josh Dobbs? I want to root for Josh Dobbs. But you know who Josh Dobbs is? It came to me. He's Vince Evans. Do you remember Vince Evans? Vince Evans hung around professional football for about 20 years. He was 6th-round draft pick of the Bears from USC in 77. Super athletic, powerful arm, and he could move, and he was always in shape. Played with the Bears through about 80, 81. Then they went and drafted McMahon. Evans ended up in the USFL with the Chicago Blitz, and he had no place to go. Came back to the Raiders in the 87 strike year as one of the PL players that crossed the line, and Davis kept him. Al Davis kept him, and he hung around the Raiders for about another 9 years, and he was one of those guys. He would play well coming off the bench. He would play well subbing in, spot starting, all that kind of stuff. But whenever he was given the job or given an opportunity for longer stretches, he was exposed for his limitations. And I think that's Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs has a nice arm. He's very mobile, and he's just getting exposed right now. Great athlete, marginal quarterback, good thinker. And so there's always going to be a place for him in the NFL, but I don't think he's ever going to cross that line. He's gone from third string practice squad quarterback to legitimate number 2 in the NFL. And if you're asking me if I'd rather have Josh Dobbs or Brett Rippon in Green Bay in week 9, I wish it was Josh Dobbs, but I think we do know what Josh Dobbs is. And I think we do know, as everyone kind of knew, we know what Justin Fields is. For the Bears to not move off Justin Fields, if they get the number 1 pick, they own the Panthers' first-round pick. That makes the Panthers' year even worse with everything else going on. They own the Panthers' number 1 pick. The Panthers just fired everybody. It was like the Sunday Night Massacre, and they fired everybody. And so the Bears are going to get the number 1 pick. How do the Bears look at their fans honestly? How do they honestly assess those? Ryan Poles, the GM, you got Caleb Williams, number 1, right there. Caleb Williams. I'm telling you right now, not only Caleb Williams, and you wouldn't do this for number 1, Bo Nix is better than Justin Fields. Michael Penix is better than Justin Fields. And I'll even say this, Sam Hartman at Notre Dame is better than Justin Fields. Watching Justin Fields throw countless hitches and screens in that game made me think of Jared Goff in 2020. If you're a Ram fan, do you remember what those last weeks with Jared Goff were in the back half of 2020? The team had no confidence in him. McVay has no confidence in him. The Bears have no confidence in Justin Fields. You're sitting there, it's like he's got DJ Moore, even Darnell Mooney. He's got Tunyon, he's got Kmet, he's got those running backs. And I was kind of impressed with the Bears defense. And he's throwing hitches and screens, and he's not going downfield. And he's in his 3rd year. He needs a rebirth. He needs to go someplace else. We thought Jared Goff was through. I will always justify. I know my great friend Tim Burns, he's a Jared Goff guy. The Rams had no confidence in Jared Goff. The Jared Goff that was playing in 2018, and I've said this before, go look at the replay of the 2018 NFC title game. I know it was played in 2019. Look at the throws he was making downfield, and then skip forward a year and a half later, and the Rams have no confidence in him. But he gets reborn in Detroit. Maybe Justin Fields needs that, because the Bears, only the Bears would be the Bears, right? And the Bears have an opportunity. They've drafted Cade McNown, Rex Grossman, Mitchell Trubisky, right? They always seem to whiff on the quarterback, and they whiffed on Justin Fields. And Caleb Williams looks like their best bet. I think if they could draft Caleb Williams, and if Caleb Williams turns into a bust, then they could argue, well, there's a curse on the franchise. And then they got to think about, cutting the head off a live chicken at the 50-yard line or something. I don't know. But they need to draft. If he's there, they better draft Caleb Williams, or the fans should send back in their season tickets. All right. We talked about Frank Wright, talked about Carolina being fired. But one that I didn't realize on Monday is they also fired quarterback coach Josh McCown and Deuce Staley, the former running back with the Eagles. They promoted their special teams guy as head coach. But Thomas Brown, the former Ram assistant coach, he is the OC, and he's going to be calling the plays. And he did that for about 3 games this year already. And then Reich took the responsibilities back from him. But it'll be interesting to see how Thomas Brown develops. Speaking of quarterbacks, looking at the latest mix, I was watching the ESPN game on Monday night, and they were rating the top 5, draft prospects. They listed Caleb Williams. They listed, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake May. And the part that made me laugh is, why is Drake May there? Did you see Drake May play this year? Did you see Carolina this year? I wasn't overly impressed with Drake May. In fact, if you said Caleb Williams, he's gone, we're drafting Caleb Williams, you got a choice, and you got a choice between everyone else that's left on the board. I'm going Bo Nix, Michael Penix. I might even go J.J. McCarthy or Quinn Ewers. But Drake May, I don't get it. Right now, I was looking at one of the big boards. They list Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, who I'm not sold on. I know a lot of people are. I could be wrong, but people are sold on Jaden Daniels at LSU. Shadir Sanders was on the list, but I don't think Shadir Sanders is coming out. J.J. McCarthy at Michigan, Ewers at Texas. They also listed Riley Leonard at Duke. Riley Leonard, go back to school. Shadir, go back to school. Drake May, go back to school. And just before I came on the air, I thought it was really funny that I saw this thing come across my screen in a news release that South Carolina quarterback Spencer Rattler has announced for the NFL draft. Spencer Rattler. Don't you remember Spencer Rattler when he was at Oklahoma? Was that like in 2012? He was a Heisman candidate and he lost his job to Caleb Williams. Seems like Spencer Rattler has been around longer than Kevon Slovis, right? That guy has been around forever, Spencer Rattler, but he's going to the NFL now, or hopefully he's going to the NFL. Before we get to the break, Hall of Fame semifinalists came out, long list of players for the Rams. London Fletcher, he should have been in a long time ago. London Fletcher's a slam dunk. That guy's a Hall of Famer. Torrey Holt, I think Torrey Holt's a Hall of Famer, but Torrey Holt really suffers because there's always a glut of receivers. You got Stephen Smith Jr., who now people are really starting to like and appreciate because he's an announcer and he's one of those keeping it real guys. And then you got Andre Johnson, the former Houston Texan. If he had been anywhere but Houston, he'd already be in. Hines Ward and Reggie Wayne. And so I think that's going to hurt Torrey Holt. I think he's a Hall of Famer, but it's going to hurt him because of the glut of receivers. And really interesting is there was no Steven Jackson. No Steven Jackson. That really fried me. No Steven Jackson, and but Tiki Barber is on there. And honestly, in their primes, please help me, somebody. How do you put Tiki Barber in the Hall of Fame or as a semifinalist over Steven Jackson? Yeah, help me here. Other names that were on that list that I think should be in the Hall of Fame, definitely Steeler fan Rob will appreciate this. James Harrison, absolutely a Hall of Famer. And Devin Hester, absolutely a Hall of Famer. Really liked Devin Hester. And, he became somewhat of an accomplished receiver as well later in his career. Okay, let's get to this. I'm Joe Terosian. I'm a sports writer for 21 years. Now I get to do RamView, and I do RamView thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law and Temple City Auto, and I write books. My books are on Amazon. You can find them there. Type in Joe Terosian, Torosian, Steeler fan Rob. You should be purchasing my whole collection. And anyone else out there, baby needs a new pair of shoes, you can check that out. I write books and I do RamView because it helps sustain me in my day job. I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene, and we have a channel right here on YouTube called Burbank Faith Virtual, and you can check us out all around social media. Also, if you could check us out, RamView on Spotify, we're just trying to build our footprint there. It's happening incrementally, one follower at a time. But if you could check us out on Spotify, we would be greatly appreciative as we're trying to build our mark there. And that's where I thought we would originally build, but we've had more success on YouTube. But thank you so much for helping us out. Okay, that's the commercial. Let's look at the questions here. Sorge, Steeler fan Rob, I never thought playoffs. Yeah, bro, you got Kenny Pickett at quarterback. You shouldn't be thinking playoffs either. They just weren't good enough. If we would have played better, we should have beaten the Browns again. But you didn't play better. You are what your record says you are, right? You said this. A few bad calls cost us against the Jaguars. Oh, man. If. Thank you. Bill, AMS Bill, go Cowboys against Seattle. Yes. I give permission for every Ram fan, authentic Ram fan, because an authentic Ram fan hates the Cowboys. But I grant, as the prophet of Ramdom, I grant permission for you to root for the Cowboys on Thursday. Thank you, Bill. They just hammer Seattle. Just beat the Browns, no excuses. Oh, coming from Steeler fan Rob talking about excuses. My goodness, man. It depends on what your definition of the word is, Steeler fan Rob. Bill, what are the odds that the Rams trade out of the first? I think a very good chance. Ooh, man, Bill, you're coming with some hard stuff today. I don't even know if I want to consider that. Put it this way. If the Rams go on a deep run, if the Rams sweep the rest of their schedule, which means they beat the Browns, they win against Baltimore, they beat the chumps in between the Frisco game and win in Frisco, and that would mean the Rams would be 11-6. That would, of course, make them a wild card team. I don't think Frisco is going to collapse. But let's just say they get to the NFC Championship game or something. I mean, hypothetically, the back end of what that first round draft pick would drop from inside the top 10 to probably in the mid 20s. Then I think anything is possible, because as most you'll hear the scouts say, and I'm just repeating what I hear on this one. This isn't a Joe T-ism here. One of the things you hear them say is after the first 15 players, no one's sure about anything. And so yeah, I hate to say it, but I think Ram fans are they need their first round pick, right? Bill, you just brought up a heavy one. I don't even know if I'm ready to go there, but yeah, well, that's a tough one to chew on. That's a great question. Top 10, no, they're not trading. I think top 15, they're not trading. Outside of the top 15, top into the 20s, yeah, that'd be a great discussion to have. We'll see where we land this season. Tim Burns, our great friend Tim Burns up north, Reich will get a gig. Dude is the ultimate underdog. Okay, yeah, I think Frank Reich, he said maybe his NFL career is over. It's a bummer. He played for two owners that were super impatient, right? Or coached for two owners, Irsay in Indy. I was going to say Irsay in Baltimore, Irsay in Indy, and the Tepper in Carolina. And I think Frank Reich's a good coach. I don't know. He might just want to take some time off right now and then slowly work back in. But he had been successful. He had been successful in Indy. And then everything kind of fell apart last year. We'll see. But I am a Frank Reich fan. You love the Outsiders kit. Yeah. This is the shirt from Outsiders. My one of my other assignments here is I am on the board at a place called Granite Ridge Christian Camp. I mentioned them as a sponsor. I direct Outsiders Ministry, and that means I help coordinate youth camp and kids camp all throughout the year, as well as a man camp and a Just Breathe ladies retreat up at Granite Ridge. And I just wore my Outsiders because it was hanging in my office, and I thought, hey, it'll look good. We can talk some Outsiders. Okay, I think we got our questions in. Let's move to the second half of the show here after break here, and let's see what we got here. Just some Rams updates. I was looking at the PFF grades, and I tell you, you take the PFF grades with a grain of salt. Great starting place, but don't let it replace what you see with your eyes. I say that all the time. But roughly there are 64 starting cornerbacks in the NFL, right? Cornerbacks, CBs. And the slot CB is still being worked out because a lot of safeties are doing that work now. Quentin Lake was doing that for the Rams. But anyway, PFF grades 120 cornerbacks. And Darian Kendrick now grades out at 59th overall. Is that okay? Is that good enough? Is that he is inside the top 64? Akilla Witherspoon is grading out at 45th overall. I wanted to throw that in there. I was looking at the Rams depth chart, and I saw Troy Reader's name ahead of Christian Rosebroom. Has Troy Reader passed Christian Rosebroom? That'll be interesting to see who picks up the snaps on Sunday against Cleveland. I don't think it's going to be a blowout where, a lot of guys on the bench are going to get a bunch of snaps. So whoever plays this week, collects the snaps this week, those are the guys that you can tell the Rams are counting on. Edge Byron Young. If you've noticed, to me, he seems to be slowing the wall. Maybe he has hit a wall, slowing down a little bit. He hasn't had a sack since Green Bay, which that's not so bad, but he hasn't had a quarterback hit other than that sack since the Pittsburgh game. Even his hurries have slowed. On the flip side, Michael Hoyt, after a brutal first 5 weeks of the season, has been playing better. He's been picked up 4 sacks in the last 3 weeks, and he's been better in pass coverage. Maybe he's getting less exposed in pass coverage, but again, something to think about. And I'm going to make a point here in a minute. And then you have Kobe Turner, who's collected 5 sacks. 5 sacks as an interior defensive lineman, the 91st pick overall. Again, that's huge. The Rams got 10 sacks from 2 guys in the 3rd round, all right, combined. That's a huge deal. That's a successful draft. Then you add Steve Avila, right? Then you add Nakua, and then you add Ethan Evans. That's a successful draft. Right now, PFF, for what it's worth, has Kobe Turner out of Northwestern, the conductor, ranked 22nd out of 127 interior defensive linemen. Aaron Donald was number 4, 127, and Bobby Brown, the guy we talked about in the offseason, saying he needed to have a big year. It hasn't been a big year, but it's been an efficient year. PFF grades him at 31 out of 127. I don't know if that's going to get him a second contract, but he has played better, and interesting to see how he's going to play down the stretch, because I think he is he? Is it 21, 22, 23? Yeah, I think he's getting pretty close to that, needing that second contract. We'll see. We'll see how it works out for him. I think we got one more year out of him. Duke Shelley was put on the IR with a hamstring. Of course, we know Quentin Lake's out with a hamstring. Rams signed Sean Jolly off the practice squad. And they re-signed Cameron McCutcheon to the practice squad to replace Jolly and cut Grant Miller from the practice squad. And I know Grant Miller has been hanging around on the practice squad since August. Probably thought, I'm going to make it through the end of the season. And then they call him up and say, hey, Grant, dude, we're putting you in the street. That's a bummer. Looking ahead to week 13, the MRI on Myles Garrett for the Browns revealed no structural damage. He's sore. He's day-to-day. And the Browns, as of right now, are confident he'll play against the Rams. Amari Cooper had the rib injury. His x-rays were negative. He's expected to play. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is in concussion protocol. And the word out today is if he does not go, it's going to be Joe Flacco. Hey, Flacco still has an arm, but Flacco, I have more mobility than Joe Flacco, and that might be something good for Aaron Donald, Kobe Turner, and Byron Young, right? That Joe Flacco will be at quarterback and such. Flacco's always been a competent quarterback, but he's been nothing like the Joe Flacco that took his team on that Super Bowl run in 2012. That was a real peak period for him. Jordan Elliott, the defensive tackle for the Browns, is their other starting defensive tackle. He's considered day-to-day. And Denzel Ward, their all-pro Pro Bowl cornerback, has a shoulder injury. He missed last week, but there's nothing new to report on him. Okay, this is a championship weekend in college football. You've got Michigan, Iowa, Georgia, Alabama, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Oklahoma State, and Florida State, Louisville. I like Michigan over Iowa, but man, can you imagine what the world looks like if Iowa beats Michigan? Georgia, Alabama. Alabama barely beat Auburn. They're going to get blasted by Georgia. I hope they're blasted by Georgia because the world goes really crazy if Alabama somehow beats Georgia. Washington, Oregon. I hold Washington much higher than everyone else seems to. That if Oregon does beat Washington, I don't think Washington should immediately be bounced from the playoff picture. Oregon, I think, is as good as anybody, and I think they are going to beat Washington. If Washington beats Oregon, then Oregon's out with 2 losses. Texas, Oklahoma State, it's Steve Sarkisian. You just never know what's going to happen with them. And Louisville should beat Florida State. They should beat Florida State. I just don't want to see Alabama. Alabama should not even be considered, especially if they lose to Georgia. And I like a scenario where Michigan beats Iowa, gets in, Georgia beats Alabama, gets in, Oregon beats Washington, but Washington's 12-1. Washington should still get in. I like the 2 Pac-12 schools in, but I think for revenue, I think they're going to make sure Texas goes. Wanted to get that out. Looking at week 12, the Bills, Ravens, Bears, Vikings, Raiders, and Giants are all on bye. And Thursday, Cowboys, Seahawks. As our friend Bill here just said a minute ago, I give all permission to Ram fans to cheer for the Cowboys in that short, tight Thursday night window. Let them just put a neck to the throat or a boot to the throat of the Seahawks season and crush them down. Broncos, Texans should be a real interesting game on Sunday. Chargers, Patriots should be really good. Lions, Saints, really be rooting for the Lions. We want the Saints to lose. We want the Saints on the downside when they end up coming to Los Angeles. Falcons, Jets, root for the Jets. Root for them. Root for the Jets against the Falcons. Cardinals, Steelers. Steeler fan Rob, you know you can't lose this game. You know you're going to get real fat. Kenny Pickens is going to throw 4 touchdown passes, and you guys are going to be convinced you've got your quarterback of the future. But don't be like Ram fans. Just remember, it's the Cardinals, okay? Dolphins, TaxSkins, we're rooting for the Dolphins in this one. We want the TaxSkins beaten down when they come to L.A. Panthers, Buccaneers, just in case, we're rooting for the Panthers. Buccaneers are going to win that one. And then 49ers, Eagles. And this is what we want for the 49ers, Eagles. We're not going to catch the 49ers. We get it. But what we want is for the 49ers to think of it as their Super Bowl. We want the 49ers to make a statement, right? We want the 49ers to be angry, and we want these teams to smash into each other. We want it to be physical. We want the 49ers to have some emotional satisfaction that they beat the Eagles, but that their bodies took a beating for it, right? So I want a really, really, really physical game in Philadelphia this Sunday. Of course, everyone in America will see it except for us in LA because we're going to see the Rams-Browns as it should be. Chiefs-Packers. Rams are in serious trouble if the Packers beat the Chiefs on Sunday night. And then Bengals-Jaguars, rooting for the Jaguars there. Put the Bengals out of their misery. Last week, we were 13-3 on the season with our selections. We are 120 out of 60. Okay, we're going to get to the end here real quick here, and feel free to throw any questions. Not much in Rams history happening on these days, but one thing. On this day, November 29th, 1994, the Rams waived quarterback T.J. Rubely. Now, Rubely in 1992 had been a Ram draft pick, 9th round, 228 overall out of Tulsa. He didn't play that year. He was inactive all the years, the third-string quarterback. But in 93, as everything started kind of falling apart for the Rams, he ended up starting 7 games, played in 9 for the Rams in 1993. He went 2-5 as a starter, but that Ram team was so bad, the win-loss record of any starter wasn't good. But Rubely, in that era, completed 57% of his passes, 108 out of 189 for 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. Right? I remember us watching him. And, for a second there, you're thinking, hey, maybe the Rams caught something in T.J. Rubely. He had the size. It seemed like he had the arm. When we would talk about Rubely, we'd say Rubely indubitably, And by 94, the Rams, I think, had brought in Chris Miller. And then on this date, without playing it down for the Rams in 94, the Rams put T.J. Rubely on waivers. The next day, he was officially released. He was signed in the spring by the Green Bay Packers. Now, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but he was signed by the Packers in 95, and he only appeared in 1 game for the Packers. And it was a game where in Minnesota, Brett Favre got hurt, Ty Detmer got hurt, and the Packers and the Vikings were tied 24-24. And believe it or not, Rubely was in the game, and he had moved them downfield. Now, his first snap, he fumbled, and the Vikings recovered, but the Vikings fumbled it back to the Packers. His second play was a pass that Mark Chmura, the former Packer tight end, had to kind of wrestle and have a tie with a Viking defender, and they gave the ball to the Packers. Now, he made a couple of throws after that. Robert Brooks, a couple of nice throws, Robert Brooks, and then he gave the ball to Edgar Bennett, and they set up a 3rd and 1 at the Minnesota 38. It's 24-24. It's less than a minute to play, and it's 3rd and 1, and Holmgren calls a quarterback sneak. I just remember the fallout from this because I didn't see it live. I saw the fallout from it afterward. But Rubely, right? Rubely, the 9th round pick, cut by the Rams, as bad as the Rams were, he's actually got this opportunity in Green Bay to make a little name for himself. Holmgren calls for a 1-yard sneak, but Rubely audibles out and calls a rollout. He gets chased down and flings up a desperate shot that's intercepted, and the ball game eventually goes to Minnesota. If he had just run the sneak, right, they could have set up possibly a long field goal, or if he didn't make it, or just took more time off the clock to set up a better field goal. Instead, he throws the game away. Holmgren afterwards says he didn't mince words. He said he called the sneak, and Rubely changed the play. For some reason, he thought as the 3rd-string quarterback, he had room to audible, which is most 3rd-string quarterbacks don't have the room to audible. The GM lost it, and at the end of the week, Rubely was cut. He never appeared in another NFL game, and he had a couple of moments at the Eagles offseason, the Broncos in the offseason, and then he ended up in the World League of American Football and even Canada for a while. But I just thought it was interesting because this guy's numbers weren't so bad and his talent didn't look like it was terrible. But you wonder what it was about TJ Rubely that said, you know what, we're done with this guy. We're done with this guy. I'm guessing he had an overestimation of what he could do. All right. Cool. Let's
it was a stone group, my man.
Bill, I loved Rubely. He was a running machine. You know, there was a moment there, right, Tim or Bill? We believed he was the guy that, you know, maybe he's the guy. So yeah, TJ Rubely. Thank you for chiming in on that. Tim Burns, lots of talk of Stafford is tired of getting creamed and may retire after this year. What do the Rams do if that were to happen? Well, it is a quarterback deep draft. If he was to retire, I'm sure he'd let the team know. And if that's the case, that answers Bill's question. If the Rams have a pick inside the top 15 with the depth at the quarterback at this in this draft, the Rams would probably draft a quarterback. So yeah, I see that. If Stafford's good to go, you know, there's nothing wrong with Stafford's arm. There's nothing wrong. It's the thumb right now. You get him another lineman. You get him maybe another receiver. Again, I know that sounds like heresy, but you need someone probably, I hate to say it, Cooper Kupp's got a little age on his tires. That's all. Any other questions out there anyone wants to throw at me? I'm happy to talk about them, but thanks for sticking with me. We are going to be live again on Friday, and be sure to check us out. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, share this with your friends, and check out our sponsors or check out my books on Amazon. And we will go from there. I do have I have another novel coming out, hopefully before Christmas. It's a novel about Ram fans. And so if you're interested, let me know. I'd be happy to let you know when it's going to get published, but we're working on that right now. Okay. Wow. We have hit the 38-minute mark. I do believe this is the long form of a podcast, Ramcast. Thank you so much, folks, for clicking on. I see I got numbers here. I hate to leave you. Yeah. So root for the Seahawks to lose on Thursday, and we will go from there. God bless. Take care, and we will see you on Friday. Tim, Dan, Bill, Steeler fan Rob, thank you for clicking on. Dano, go Rams.